Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So we had been discussing about three lives of Bharat Maharaj. And previous two sessions we discussed about the life of a King Bharata. So first was the life of a King Bharata, who was a Raj Rishi, who performed uh, like throughout life he lived, ruled very well like a dharmic king. And then at the final end of his life, he renounced everything and went to the Pulashra ashram to pursue his spiritual career. So there he met with a deer and he got attracted to that baby deer, and that's where his attention. Oh, he was motherless, that's why he gave him shelter. That was good enough. But after that, he just carried away. He just carried away with that deer and started doing so many things for that deer. Close that door. He started doing so many things for that deer that his spiritual life was neglected. Whatever the spiritual duty he had, he got neglecting that. So that's where the trouble started for his own life. He actually renounced everything so that he can pursue a proper spiritual life. And we then understood, okay, what is the purpose of a human form of life? The human form of life is for actually, the life of a responsibility. We cannot just utilize it for as we use like animals. So tractor cannot be used in a place of Mercedes cannot be used in a place of tractor, right? Because the tractor has some higher purpose. Same way, the human form of life has a higher purpose. It cannot be used for something low, like animal. Let's see all these things. Okay, so we saw King Bharata, he left home and palace and all those comforts to get absorbed in Krishna, but because of that deer, looking for the shelter and caring for that deer and watching how he is entertaining, right? And then enchanting running of that deer and when he used to draw his attention and affection. This Bharata was so much absorbed in this that he forgot about Krishna, and what remained is that deer in his thoughts. And once when that deer was not there, he was anxiously looking for that deer and he fell off, fatally injured, and that time what came in front of is a deer. So he was so much absorbed in the deer that last moment what he remembered is a deer. So this was a Bhagavad Gita's law of last thought. Right? What is the law of last thought? Whatever the state one remembers while you are creating the body, that state you attain without fail. Right? That's what Lord Shri Krishna says. Antakale cha mameva smaran mukva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nasi atra samshaya. That means antakale cha mam eva. At the time of the death, if somebody remembers me, antakale cha mam eva smarana muktva kalevaram. He will, if he remembers me at the time of death, Kalevaram yat prayati samad bhavan. I mean, he will going to attain my nature, mad bhavam, yati nasti atra samshaya. Of this, there is a no doubt at all. Right? This is what we saw, the law of last thought. Okay, we have seen all these things. We have taken this quiz also. Then, because of the law of last thought, what happened is he achieved the body of deer. And but what was the good point with that deer is, see, whatever the spiritual credit you have, Krishna gives back some returns of that spiritual credit. And he could actually remember everything what he was in a previous life, what mistake he has committed in previous life. And that's why this deer was a very special deer, and he actually started practicing austerity. He was not eating green grass, he was eating dry grass. He went to the Polish ashram, giving up the place of birth. He went to Polish ashram, hiding from the bushes. He was hearing to those sages who were conversing about Krishna Katha, hearing their pravachan from the bushes, right? And that's how he was doing. He was actually lamenting also. Unnecessarily, I have done so well, but just at the end of my life, I was just got attached to that deer, and that's how my whole thing was actually spoiled. Right. So he was foolishly thinking over that I have done this wrong. So uh, so what we are saying is okay. So at the time when the deer was thinking like this, he left his body. So at the time when he was left his body, he, because of his previous experiences, he was consciously thinking of the Supreme Lord, prayed to the Lord. Right? The king, Bharata, in the deer body, he remembered, and the Supreme Lord. And as a result, what he got is the body of, he got into the Jada Bharat. Jada Bharat was born, he was the king now was born into the deer, and the deer now born into the, this Jada Bharat was one of the pure saintly family of Brahmana, right? Where he can easily get into Krishna consciousness, right? Because the atmosphere is like that, right? So if you have seen in South India, there are those pujaris who stays in that in those lanes. There always some recitation of mantra, some wonderful culture is going on, right? So that's how in that culture to practice Krishna consciousness is very easy, other than the metro lanes of Bombay, where there's so many things have been bombarded upon you, right? And so many advertisements and so many things have been bombarded upon you. It's very difficult to remember Krishna or practice Krishna consciousness in metro cities, right? So he got that wonderful birth as a Jada Bharata. I think I told last time. So Jada Bharat, he was, why he was called as a Jada? Jada in the sense dull. He started behaving dumb and dull. Why? Although he was very intelligent, he started knowingly behaving dumb and dull. Why? Because he was very careful. Sorry, he was very careful into not to get entangled into the wrong association and gossips and unnecessary phenomena. That's why Jada Bharat was very, that last time he already had a finger burn as a Bharatas, as a King Bharata, he had his finger burn, and that's why he didn't want to engage into anything nonsensical. Anything nonsensical, and he didn't want to get into the useless talks with the people which will be forgetful of Krishna. So Jada Bharat was even much afraid of his friends and relatives because those friends were materialistic in their nature, right? They had some material outlook, right? And they were not making any spiritual progress. And that's why he didn't want to associate with them. And that's why he didn't kind of gossip with them or didn't talk to them. Right? Sometimes we have seen when we're traveling for a long distance or somebody's with us for the long distance, and somebody just keeps on talking to you for certain, starts a conversation. That conversation takes to so many other different routes, right? And you forget why I started this conversation. So sometimes it just bogs you down, this kind of conversation. So that's why better to avoid and talk whatever is necessary. Sometimes that is preferred, and that's why one of my friends he said, in a long journey I don't talk, but at the just last ending of the travel, then I speak and I like give them and touch them. That, okay, there's a temple close by where you're staying. Okay, there's a temple close by. You can go there or chant Hare Krishna or something. So he wanted to be absorbed and aloof. Okay. So, but remember, that this Jada in the heart of heart, he was always thinking of the Lord. He was always remembering the Lord. He was always chanting the holy names of the Lord. Right? So he he wanted to save himself from the repeated birth and death. That's why he didn't want to get into this. His father was a like a Brahmana following from Vedic culture. So his father wanted him to study into the Vedic studies. Vedic studies. Now Vedas are very vast. You understand? Vedas are like very vast literature. How many Vedas are there? Four Vedas, right? And there are lakhs of verses into this Vedas. So to read and go through, it takes a lot of time. But more importantly, so he wanted to teach, but his brother, Jada Bharata, he didn't want to take up to that. Why he didn't want to take up to that? Because he knew if he takes upon, right, if he takes upon this, he will get caught up into the Vedic rituals. What are Vedic rituals? Do you know? Yeah, yagyas, and so many other rituals, right? So sometimes people, have you seen sometimes, you go to some pujari and he says, okay, ठीक है, अभी हाथ में पानी दीजिए, फिर संकल्प छोड़िए, फिर नारे ये इस हाथ से उठाइए, उस हाथ से ये कीजिए, इस हाथ से कीजिए, वो हाथ से कीजिए, right? And sometimes we just carry on doing it, right? Without a single upliftment into the spiritual consciousness. We just carry on whatever is being done, and he doesn't even enlighten us about what is the spiritual knowledge, right? Sometimes this kind of practices goes on, right? उसको मतलब है दक्षिणा से, right? और आपको मतलब है कभी जल्दी से हटा देगा, कभी मुझको छुटकारा देगा, right? And that's what the Vedic rituals glide down. Right? Actually, it should not happen. Actually, the rituals should uplift you. Your consciousness should be uplifted. But rather than that, it becomes so mechanical. And that's why I didn't want to go and get into those Vedic rituals, which in turn forget the essence, but we just carry out mechanically. Now, what does that mean? I'll give an example. Okay. Jesus Christ once said, when he went to Jerusalem, that time he said, let me recollect. So he told those priests there, you are just following the word of the law. You're just following the word that this has to be done, this has to be done. He said, follow the spirit of the law. The spirit has to be followed, right? For what you are doing it, that you should know. So knowing the purpose, what you are doing, that is more important. Why you do what you do, right? What are the rituals you do? You should know the purpose behind it, right? So that is more important. Without understanding that, people just carry on blindly doing it. So that is not a that is generally happens in a Vedic rituals, and therefore he didn't want to act. Uh, uh, so that's why he said he acted like he's very unintelligent person, right? And that's why he kind of skipped this Vedic studies. Okay, coming ahead is a what quiz. Okay, quiz. So take down your mobile, and I already forwarded that link on the group. All right. So here is a quiz number 13. Quiz number 13. Sorry. So the third option was I can tell him that I have a slight headache and don't feel like going out. Then he may push you. Okay. So chal to sahi. You'll start feeling good, right? So even this is also I don't consider it's a good answer. Or the fourth answer is I can tell him I have a stomach upset and I have to rush anytime to the washroom. That's why I cannot come to any events or anywhere. That could be a better answer, right? Because there's a better excuse than any of those, right? So, you have to be on your, you have to think from your mind that what you can do better way to escape, right? So, it is not a question of, you cannot please everybody. You cannot please everybody. So, you have to choose whom you want to, what are your priorities are. You have to choose your priority. Understand the point? Okay. Okay. So, that's okay. Answer is the last one. Okay. Now you may say there, see, you are having your book of your life. You're writing your book of your life, right? So what you'll write into this book of your life, whatever the inputs you have received, from from the books you read, from the friends you have, the videos or anything you watch. That's how you're going to write the book of your life. Do you want to write a book of life in a golden words, nicely, neatly, right? Isn't it? So you have to you have to keep a check on these inputs of yours. Right? And that's why you should allow the good inputs and not unnecessary things to be taken in. Am I clear? Yes? All right. 14. Why did Jadabharata not want to become a Vedic scholar? He thought it is very time consuming to study all the four Vedas. Actually, actually it is wrong. Because he was not bothering about the time. Time he want to give. Time he want to give for the spiritual life. Right? He was not for botheration. Hey, बस मुझको ना बस इतना ही समय है. मैं इससे ज्यादा नहीं करूंगा. He was not bothering about the time. Second, he was a dull, blind, deaf, and thus could not be trained in the Vedas. Is wrong. His goal was not to become a learned scholar, but to be a devotee of the Supreme Lord. Yes, true. Fourth is Vedic followers often become caught up in a ritualistic procedures, forgetting Supreme Lord. That is also true, right? So answers are C and D, right? So see, we had discussed as a spirit of Bhagavad Gita that uh, what are the two things Krishna says? Bhakto si mein sakha cheti. How should you approach Bhagavad Gita? Is in a mode of a devotional attitude and not envious attitude, right? So you should approach with a devotional attitude and not the scholarly attitude. Bhagavad Gita should be approached not in a scholarly attitude, but in a devotional attitude. We discussed in our Gita Wisdom series, Spirit of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so let's see what happens to Jadabharata. Jadabharata, he remained silent and internally he was doing the all bhajan and singing and everything, calmly practicing his spiritual life. Right? Because he knew that he has to go back home, back to Godhead. So that's why he didn't want to confront anybody. He didn't want to confront anybody unnecessarily. So he had a 9 state brothers who consider him like a dumb, dull, brainless, right? So what they made him like a okay. They made him like a scarecrow. You know what the scarecrow is? Have you seen scarecrow? Yes. Where did you see? Okay, which village? Where is it? Gujarat. Okay. So this kind of scarecrow is to drive these birds or the wild animals, keep them away from the farm, right? to secure. So that's how they built, because he was not doing much. That's why he became like little hefty, right? And so that's why he was like a body of like an animal ox, right? And his nine brothers, that's why ignored him, made him like this. He did, and they gave him the job like this. So even ordinary people will also were insulting him, were neglecting him, and they used to consider him as a useless fool. But he never protested. He never protested, right? Because he didn't want to get into the unnecessary arguments. So sometimes they used to give his stepbrothers, they used to give him some palatable food, or sometimes unpalatable. तो कभी tasty, कभी जला हुआ, कभी spoiled food. They used to give him. Right? I never used to complain. He just used to let it, right? Because he knew I have to be very alert, because I already suffered in my two lifetimes. Now this lifetime I have got, let me be very cautious now, very cautious. So he was, can you see that figure? What's this? Is actually a rough diamond. It's like a stone, right? Once you give him a proper shape, it comes out in a proper ring, right? In a proper jewel, right? It comes out very well. So he was just like that valuable gem. He was covered with the dirt, right? जैसे कोई ऐसे नीचे से अगर वो जेम निकलता है तो पूरा कवर्ड विद डर्ट रहता है ना, इट्स लाइक दैट. So outside it appeared like he's a dumb, dull, unintelligent fool. So everybody is neglecting and insulting him, but inside he was a diamond. Inside he was a valuable chain. Right? That's how internally he was. So those who are intelligent people, they don't show off so much outside, right? But those who don't have internally anything, they have to make a show. You understand the point? Yes. But Jada Bharat, he had so much substance inside, and he didn't want to show off, and he remained like a. He showed up. He didn't want to bother the. He didn't want others to bother him, and that's why he appeared like that. Okay. So page number 15. Why did Jada not protest when his brother insulted him? Why he didn't? Completely liberated from the bodily concept of life. Is that? Yes. He was above the bodily concept of life. He was at the spirit soul level, and that's why he didn't bother. Right? Second thing is, there were nine step brothers, and he was single. And it was better for him not to protest. मैं कुछ करूंगा तो ये बाद में धो डालेंगे मुझको. Right? It's a wrong. Right? He did not want to be distracted this time by anything as it happened in earlier life as a Bharata. True. So A and C. B is, by tolerating insults in life, Jadabharata knew that the wages and food will get better over a time. That's the most of the pupils hope for. And they just want to tolerate for what? कि आगे कुछ अच्छा मिलेगा. Promotion हो जाएगा, right? But that promotion is like a carrot. And they ask you to run, 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 run. There's a small carrot which is hanging. Okay. Yeah. So the answers are A and text. Okay. Quiz number 16. What should we do when someone insults us? This is a very good reflection for all of you. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So, okay, write it 1.6. When I had done some rule there, very much right. But C is very much right, because if I am at the if I am wrong, then what should I do? I'll find my improvements. If they are wrong, then what I should do? I don't point the finger at. What's your name? Yeah, Advait. Okay, Advait. I will not point. Advait, you are always like this. I will point out what a mistake has happened rather than pointing the person. Right? You understand? That's where people get actually wrong. People actually point the person. That's where they get. Understood? Yeah. So C is very right. D, I will tolerate and go on with my spiritual life. I can't afford to spoil my spiritual consciousness fighting back with everybody for every small mistakes they do. Right? I can't argue back with everybody and for the petty issues. Okay, why I should not argue back with somebody? There was a wonderful somebody had sent me this. He says, okay, somebody asked him, how do you remain so calm and quiet? He says, yeah, because I don't engage into the unnecessary argument. But he says, how can you not, if somebody is saying something wrong, how can you not do that? He said, let's read this. You are right. So it's better to avoid and cut the conversation rather than taking it ahead, right? Isn't it? It's always better rather than doing my point and his point and my point and his point, right? Rather than go ahead, move in the life. Don't get caught up in the petty issues of this. Okay. Now what happened is, so as he was standing as a scarecrow, right? This Jada Bharata was standing like that. Meanwhile there was a gang of dacoits who wanted to worship Kali, goddess Kali. Okay. Now this they wanted to do Narabali to Kali. They wanted to feed her a human blood by cutting the human, giving her the human blood. See, this kind of worship is nowhere. This kind of yoga is nowhere mentioned in our scriptures in Vedic theology. Right? They had concocted their own ideas. Many times people concoct their own ideas how to worship the God, and that becomes a tradition. Okay. Prabhupada used to say that's one example. In one of the families in the Bengal, what they used to do, they were just doing the uh, marriage ceremony, and the again everything was going on. They said, okay, now get a cat, and put a basket on. Huh? And I said, what? What's it? He said, no, that's our tradition. And then they inquired, what was that tradition? The grandfather and others then they came to know actually in one of the marriages the cat was bothering so much. That's why they covered that cat with the basket. Right? But that became as a tradition and it became a ritual over a period. Right? And sometimes like this, certain traditions are concocted and just followed like that. Unfortunately, it is just followed like that, right? And you sometimes see somebody's community, the same tradition, he is following certain tradition, and in some other community is exactly following opposite tradition. You find that, right? Yes. So something like that. So these are all things which are concocted unless and until this studied in the scriptures properly. Okay. So they had caught a man. They had caught a man whose body they wanted to keep, sacrifice. But that man got escaped into the jungles. So they were searching for him. They're searching for him because the Muhurta is going away. That's why they landed up here into the jungles, into his farms, and they saw. This man looks dumb, unintelligent, and is very heavy, like an ox, right? He is a better catch for us. And they actually kidnapped him. They kidnapped him, and he didn't protest. As the nature of his, he didn't want to protest anything. Right? So he then these dacoits took that Jadabharata to the temple of Kali, and then there, so he was brought in front of the Kali, but he didn't protest. And due to he had a complete faith in the protection of the Supreme Lord. Jadabharata didn't protest. Rather, he said, Abhijit, can you read out in this italic? Yeah. My Lord, I am your eternal son. If you like, you can see. Oh, if you like, you can see. In any case, I have fully surrendered with you. मारो बीरा खूबी जो इच्छा तुम्हार. So, one of the bhajans, he says. So, Lord, he prayed to the Lord Krishna, whatever you want to, whatever you wish me to do, right? But he had a complete faith and protection into the Supreme Lord. So he knew, actually, this is the path of us pure devotees. They are surrendered to the will of the Lord. As the Bible says, His will to be done. Thy, not mine, but thy will be done. Yeah, thy will be done. Not mine, but thy will be done. Means his wish, the Supreme Lord's wish should be done, not mine. So he was totally dependent upon the Supreme Lord. And as he was brought, so as you see, amongst them, among the gangster, there was one Pandit, right? Who was like raised his razor and about to kill him. Okay, quiz. Quiz number 17. Why did Jayabharata not protest when he was taken by the robbers to be killed? Why didn't he protest? Sorry. Further, this is the correct answer because Lord has given a full assurance to his devotees of his protection. What does the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita? Name bhaktya pranashyati. What does it say? My devotee will not perish. That's his assurance. He says, my devotee will not go down. He will always protect. How will he protect? How does he protect? So, Jatayu, what happened to Jatayu? Advait, what happened to Jatayu in the last time? What happened to Lord Ramchandra? Yes, go. Yeah, then he was fatally injured. He collapsed. He could not save Sita. What happened after? Mhm. Ram came. Okay. Then Jatayu, what happened to Jatayu then? When the Ram met him? But Lord says, Name Bhaktya Pranashyati. Yes. So Jatayu actually took a last breath. He died on the lap of Lord Ramachandra. Okay. That was the fortune of Jatayu. Okay. So Name Bhaktya Pranashati in the sense, it is not that he will be saved by his life, right? But he will be saved by his consciousness. That death was not received even for the Dashrath Maharaj, right? That death was received by Jatayu to die into the what is this? Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. At the last moment, if somebody remembers me, that's how he will attain me. देखा था मैं law of last thought, right? Isn't it? So what it means is, actually forget about remembering the Lord. Lord is personally present there. Lord is not just personally present, but Lord is keeping his body onto his lap. It's a great fortune Jatai had, and that's how his devotee will not be perished. Right? Lord promises his devotee will not be perished. His consciousness will always be protected. Okay? So he says he had a full assurance on the protection of the Lord. Right? So third is due to his complete faith that there was no way he could escape from the robbers now. मतलब उसने समझ चुका था कि अभी मेरा कोई अभी चारा नहीं है बस. Was that? No. Only the sea is right. नमे भक्त्या प्रणश्यति. What happens after that? The dacoit has raised the sword and now he's about to cut his head. Okay. When he was about to cut his head, okay, there before what happened? He was dressed very nicely. He was given a good bath. Yeah, dressed well and garlanded well, right? है ना? तो एकदम ऐसा जब बलि पे चढ़ाया जाता है ना, तब ऐसे ही घोड़े पे भी चढ़ाया जाता है. So he was paid a very wonderful last meal and was brought in front of the goddess's Kali. Right? And then, as he was raising the sword, the razor, that time the Kali, the deity of the Kali broke open and the Kali comes out. Goddess Kali comes out and she started killing all these gangsters who were actually worshipping Goddess Kali. But why did she do that? Why did that Goddess Kali kill them? Because she protects whom? Supreme Lord's devotees. Right? Yes. So even the devatas, other devatas like Ganesha, Durga, Saraswati, or anybody else, they also like to help Lord Krishna's devotees. Right? Lord Krishna is such a wonderful and supreme Lord, and that's why even they care that his devotees will be protected. So that's the faith what Jadabharata had. Like if you throw the child into the air, the parents throw the child into the air. What happens? Child cries. He laughs. He giggles, right? Why? So the फेंक रहे ऊपर हवा में. Because they have a faith. That baby has a faith that I will be caught by my parents again, and that's why she always has that protection. They have a faith, and same way Jada Bharat had a protection from the Supreme Lord. That will protect me, right? Okay, quiz number 18. What will you infer from this instance of Kali decapitating her own worshippers? That means beheading. काली अपने खुद के भक्तों को मार चुकी. क्यों मार चुकी? मारा उन्होंने. Karthik, right? Karthik, na? What's his name? Kaushik. Understanding? If anyone has any confusions, let me know. The first is demigods are the devotees of the Supreme Lord, and they cannot tolerate seeing the Lord's great devotee abused or killed. This is true. B. The goddess of Kali could not bear the human offering. She wanted a warm blood of a goat and a liquor. And that was wrong. C. The chief priest who raised the razor sharp sword was sinful as well as thieves. Was that the reason? No. Actually, these are the worshipper of Kali. They are always in the mode of ignorance. Who worships the goddesses Kali are those who do काला जादू देखा है ना. बंगाल में ज्यादा है पॉपुलर होता है. Black magic. Yeah. So there is a mode of ignorance worship, right? So they practice it in the night times. They worship Kali and something like that, right? That's called as mode of ignorance worship. D is Kali is unhappy with her followers who mishandle the Supreme Lord's pure devotees. That is true. So the answers are A and very good. Okay. What happens to Jada Bharata ahead? Okay. We will take that later. Shall we? Okay. It's समय क्या हो गया? Okay. It's one of the you have a question. Yeah.